What's going on, everybody? We're going to talk about CPI in this video, the upcoming Fed meeting. We're also going to talk about something going on with Bitcoin. We have 13F filings coming out. And I also want to give a mention to Sphere 3D, who recently reported their earnings. First off, looking at our CPI that we did receive today, annual inflation slows to a 2.9% in July, the lowest since 2021. This is our first under 3% read. And going over to the year-over-year chart, you can see that we are starting to get lower reads. They are consistently coming in lower, and we are getting them under the forecast, which has recently been going down. This is a positive in hopes for rate cuts. PPI the other day as well, that shows inflation easing too. Of course, the numbers are all cooked. They're taking out certain items to push the narrative their own direction, obviously, but we are getting basically what we need. The trajectory of inflation has been coming down. If our next read is even lower than 2.9, to me that's going to show that we are on a clear path for rate cuts, and this will help companies that would otherwise have to take out high interest rate debt. Our next Fed meeting is going to be September the 17th and 18th. We do have one more CPI read before then, so all eyes will be on that. If it comes in under our read from today, that's going to be a huge positive. So far, CPI has been showing that inflation is steadily heading towards 2%, and I think that's exactly what the Fed wants. We also have some pretty big Bitcoin news in my opinion. Goldman Sachs reveals a nearly $500 million stake in Bitcoin. Even bankers can't resist Bitcoin. According to quarterly 13F filings, Goldman Sachs holds positions in 7 out of the 11, I believe it's 12 now because of the mini ETF. Anyways, 7 of the Bitcoin ETFs available in the US. The bank's largest investment is IBIT, with a substantial stake of $238 million. And this is followed by FBTC, or Fidelity's Bitcoin ETF, with nearly $80 million. Invesco Galaxy's BTCO with $56 million, and Grayscale's GBTC with a small by comparison, $35 million. They also hold some other positions such as in ARK. They are diversified in their Bitcoin spot ETFs. We also had total inflows, the news of total inflows now. As of yesterday's day, we saw a 39 million day of inflows there. IBIT saw 34 million in inflows. The inflows don't stop there. They are consistently seeing inflows while others occasionally see outflows. I believe since inception, IBIT has had only one outflow day. Otherwise, it's either all inflows or a few no-flow days. I do think this is BlackRock somehow propping it up, perhaps adding it into other random funds. And of course, in contrast, Grayscale's GBTC saw outflows of 28 million. You'll notice that they are slowing though. We are seeing these double-digit millions of outflows rather than hundreds of millions. It is slowing down. Grayscale went from having around 20 billion in assets under management, might have been more than that, but they went from that around inception to now having nearly $10 billion in assets under management. The people that exited Grayscale for lower fees, the majority have already done so, and at some point we will start seeing some consistent inflows from GBTC, at least that's my opinion. Now we do have something going on for Bitcoin. While the chart has been kind of hard to read, not really any really clear patterns recently. I mean, I'm sort of watching this ascending channel, but we could easily break it here even today or tomorrow. What is really important to break in my opinion, and what the market is reacting to right now clearly, is the moving averages, the 50 MA and the 200 MA. You see these wicks coming up to touch the 50 MA, but we cannot break above that 50 MA. We also recently saw our death cross, which isn't necessarily a good sign. We have been recently seeing lower highs and lower lows, which also from a technical standpoint isn't a good sign as well. But keep in mind, Bitcoin is sneaky. Bitcoin has done this many times before, and even in this cycle, where we see consistent lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and then what happens? We break out of a resistance and go on to rally. We've seen this a few times. Lower highs, lower lows, very consistently, and then we break out. If you got shaken out here, you would have sold your Bitcoin at $25,000. If you got shaken out here, you would have sold your Bitcoin at around $27,000. Bitcoin is going to try to shake you out. Bitcoin is going to fool you technical wise and then go on to rally. To me, the most important thing to follow, who knows when this will change? One day it can, of course, but for now, the most important thing you can follow ever on Bitcoin is the 4-year cycle. There's always going to be a bull run right around the halving, and there's always going to be a bear market somewhere around the middle point of it. It won't be perfect. They won't play out exactly alike every single time, but I do think in general, we will see our bull cycle around the halving, and we will see our bear cycle at the farthest point in between both halvings, if that makes sense. In the end, it's all simple economics, supply and demand, and unless Bitcoin changes its 4-year cycle, unless Bitcoin changes how the halvings work, I don't think this is ever going to change. Percentage-wise in terms of gains in bull markets and percentage-wise in terms of drops in bear markets, these can obviously change. As Bitcoin gets larger, it's going to become less volatile and potentially less speculative, less risky, so on and so forth. But in my opinion, the 4-year cycles are always going to play out, and this is the most important thing to follow for Bitcoin, and I do see that happening at least in the foreseeable future. And we've had these shakeouts in previous cycles. Remember the double top of 2021, the 2020 Bitcoin cycle? Well, you know, we had a huge correction. We went all the way to 65,000 nearly and dropped all the way to 29,000. We had right around a 50-something% correction. This looked very bearish. We did have our death cross. People got worried, people got shaken out. People missed the subsequent run to new all-time highs, although it was pretty tame compared to where we got to. But just keep in mind, you know, Bitcoin has done this before. One thing to realize here is this was much later in that cycle. But you know, Bitcoin will have its corrections. Bitcoin will pull back, but in the end, above all else, this is a scarce asset. You can either choose to follow the 4-year cycle, which I do think will play out and give consistent returns, or you can simply follow Bitcoin on the long term, realizing that overall it will always appreciate in value if you zoom out a few years at the very minimum. There will be the rough years here and there. Those are the opportunities to accumulate, to scale in, to build up your positions for the following bull market. I do think we will be glad that we bought here in these ranges when you look at the end of 2025. I do want to talk about Sphere 3D. They did report earnings and they did report a profit, but we'll go into why this is and why they aren't expecting a profit in the next earnings. They are expecting a small growth in revenue in the next earnings, a $5.5 million quarter. That is still a pretty big decrease from pre-halving levels. The thing with Sphere 3D is this is among the riskiest of the Bitcoin miners. It is one of the smallest. We just got through the halving, and the market is treating the riskiest miners like hot trash. They think they're either going to go bankrupt, they're just not going to exist, they're not going to enjoy the bull run. I do think that Sphere 3D will enjoy a good run. I do also think that it's going to tie in more closely with alt season. When the riskiest of the risky assets run, that's when Sphere 3D will run. I could obviously be wrong in that thinking. They could obviously fail before then. They could be acquired by a different company, who knows? But let's face it, this is a $25 million market cap company, at least the last time I checked. Very, very small market cap. Many other Bitcoin miners are in the multi-billion dollar levels or hundreds and hundreds of millions. This is one of the smallest Bitcoin miners that you can find. Now, I want to briefly go into their earnings, and I want to show you guys why they reported a profit. This is basically due to the Core settlement. They received over $7 million from Core, and honestly, I think that's a big amount of money for a company of Sphere 3D's market cap size. Let's hear what the CEO has to say. Despite some challenges in the second quarter, including a 50% reduction in block rewards, temporary interruptions from certain hosting partners, we're excited to share our first shipment of S21s were energized in July. This marks an important milestone in our long-term strategy to refresh and enhance our fleet. As we continue to upgrade our equipment, we remain committed to pursuing strategic opportunities, including potential mergers that will position us for sustained growth and success in the future. They're currently holding 7.2 Bitcoin, a $500,000 market value. But keep in mind, they would have guided for a loss if it wasn't for the Core settlement. So realize, you know, this is not without its risks. This is one of the highest risky Bitcoin miners out there, to be honest. And success here is far from guaranteed. But I'm still in it. I do think it's going to do well. If you follow the cycle, I do think it's not over for Sphere 3D. I do think when the miners go on to rally, when Bitcoin finally breaks out, this is what the miners are waiting for. The miners are waiting for Bitcoin to break back to new all-time highs to show that the miners can post profitability. We haven't seen any Bitcoin miners, as of recently, posting a profitable quarter after the halving. Wall Street isn't stupid. Wall Street knows this. Wall Street is waiting to see that these Bitcoin miners can prove themselves, can prove that they can reach that profitability post-halving. Some have come really close. If Bitcoin is in the 70,000s, better yet, closer to 100, the vast majority of these Bitcoin miners will be profitable. There will be a ton of euphoria piling into them, but it is a matter of Bitcoin breaking out to new all-time highs. If it doesn't do that, the Bitcoin miners are going to just continue to kind of chop around. Wall Street knows that we need a nice little move for Bitcoin to see these Bitcoin miners being profitable, and I do believe it is right around the corner. But what do you guys think? Do you think Bitcoin is done? Do you think the top is already in this cycle? And do you think the miners have already topped out? Time to exit? Time to give up? Or wait for the subsequent bear market to buy? Or do you think the cycle will do what it has always done? Do you see the cycle topping out in 2025 with some of these Bitcoin miners getting to ridiculous prices, as we have seen in the past? Thanks as always for watching, guys. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. What is your top Bitcoin miner? Let me know down below, and I will see you on the next one.